Hello, we are going to be looking at the specific services that run on pfSense and how they're bind and how we can change the binding of them, because I see a big problem with the binding in some of these services. Also, we're going to look at how do you configure these services, like the actual configuration files, and have the changes stick and not keep getting overwritten. Okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is you're going to go to your pfSense router via a web browser, and chances are the IP address is most likely going to be 192.168.1.1, depending on your setup. I always like 10.0.0.1/24 networks myself, but whatever your pfSense router's IP address is, you're going to type that into your web browser, and hopefully it'll be redirected via HTTPS. It'll show you an invalid cert. You just accept it. We'll go into adding a real certificate and everything else later on. But just in this video, we're going to look at how to hard write configuration files for various services, and not all the services, just the most common ones, such as Nginx, the openssh daemon that is running. The very important services that you want to configure, harden down, and bind to explicit IP addresses. So you're going to be prompted with a nice new fresh interface. Now, most off-the-shelf routers, they don't have an interface that looks like this, and most of the time it's not going to be over HTTPS. Now, it's an invalid cert because we haven't put a real certificate on here, but it's still encrypted nonetheless. So the default credentials, hopefully you changed them, but the default ones are admin and pfSense. Okay, but in my case, I did actually change the password. However, you can actually go into System, User Manager, and actually completely make a completely different account name and everything. So here's the dashboard we're presented with, and you can see some of the services that are running. And the majority of the services you see here face a problem. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at, you're like, what problem are you telling me, Vic? Well, let's go ahead and go into Diagnostics Sockets. Now, this is kind of like the equivalent of a netstat that you would do on Linux to see, what services are binded to. And we're immediately brought with a warning here. Okay, now if you look, this web interface is running as root because it has to do some various configuration to the entire system, which I understand that. But keep in mind that this web interface, Nginx, has root privileges. Okay, so it's using Nginx. That's a really good HTTP server, A+ there, right? And it's using PHP. It has access to do anything on the system, which it needs root because some of these certain configurations that you're doing need that escalation, basically. But if you look, that's really not the main problem. The problem is you see *:443, *:80. Now you see it a couple times because it's basically doing multiple processes, kind of like a threading type of thing. But this right here, whenever you see an asterisk, that's immediately no. Okay. Now we can change this. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. But you can't do it via the web interface. The only thing you can do via the web interface is, enable HTTPS only, HTTP, the default port, max processes, stuff like that. But as far as binding, you can't explicitly put an IP address that you want a service to bind as, which I wish they would add. I wish they would add that to the web interface. Okay, so what this means for Nginx is this process, this daemon, is listing on all the interfaces that you have. So if I had 15 interfaces, Nginx would be actually listening on all those interfaces. And on port 80. So it's using port 80. So if I wanted to use port 80 on like a different interface, you know, for something, it's 8 and up because Nginx is binding to it. And plus, that prompts a security problem as well. Yes, by default, everything's firewalled. So they can justify, oh, it's firewalled, but that does not justify binding a service to all interfaces, no IP addresses. Because this also means bind to all IP addresses too. All IP addresses that the box itself is, you know, allocating for it's to use, you know what I'm saying? Like it could be using a certain IP address on one interface, a certain IP address on the other interface. Or it could have multiple IP addresses on a given interface. So this right here, this is a big problem to have it binding to just everything. Because it's also binding to the LAN interface. Now say the firewall, hasn't been booted yet, because when you first turn on a machine, it boots things in order. Firewalls are usually the last thing to be loaded because it has to load all the rule sets. Or say you refresh the rule set. So for a second, there's you have this listening on WAN, and while the firewall refreshes the rules. You don't want that. You want your Nginx, especially that is running as root. You want that explicitly binding to the LAN IP address, not the LAN interface. You don't want to do it. You don't want to bind via interface. That's pretty bad to do too. You want explicit. When you do stuff explicit, makes it a little bit more secure because you're really getting detailed about it. You want to explicitly bind it to the LAN IP address. Okay, that's what we want to do with this. We want to do the same for the SSHD as well, because this does not. You don't want this just listening on all interfaces. You know, the WAN interface and all that. Even though it's being firewalled out, it's not a good practice to do, because then the whole system, if the firewall goes down, the service or whatever, say had a bad rule or something, this is just a listening on the WAN interface. You know what I'm saying? Or if the firewall is not fully booted up yet, you know, it's loading the rules, or if you're refreshing the rules, stuff like that. It's not good. It's not, you know, for that second or two that the firewall is, you know, refreshing rules, or it's down, or it's booting up, or whatever. You don't want this to be, you know, available at all. Or if, God forbid, somebody is able to bypass the firewall, there's exploiting the firewall, whatever, you know, in PF. It won't be hard for them to get into the SSHD because it's already binded on the WAN interface. You know what I'm saying? Your public IP address, that SSH daemon is binding to it. So we don't want to do that. We want to explicitly bind some of this stuff. Okay, because it becomes necessary. That's just how it should be. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And say you want to add additional configuration to Nginx. If you was to go into via SSH and edit the Nginx configuration, every time you go into this interface right here, or every time the system restarts, every time the system does a system update, anything like that, the configuration that you hard-coded is going to get wiped out and basically regenerated via pfSense's version of the configuration. So there is actually a way to hard code stuff and not have it get overwritten. And the way we do that is we go to the scripts that actually write the configurations. And one caveat is if you do a system update, like you're updating to a newer pfSense version, those scripts that overwrite the configs are going to get overwritten. So that's the only caveat. But what's good about this is if you're running stable, which most people are, and I will be. I mean, this is just a beta, just, you know, to play around with. But most people running stable. Stable releases are like what, 6 months apart, a year apart. You know what I'm saying? Because it's stable. So that means you're only having to go in and, you know, reconfiguring these services to bind explicitly or adding your additional parameters or whatever once every 6 months. Not every time the system boots. So that's really good. That's what we want to do. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Like if you do a system update, say from 2.3 to 2.4 or 2.3 to 2.3.1 or something like that, these scripts that we edited will be overwritten with, you know, the newer update or whatever. So that's the only thing that will overwrite them. doing this method is just updates now. It's not the system reboots or the system updates on the web interface. So that's good. So let's see how we're going to do that, okay? So if we go into System Advanced, you can see right here, this is what we get with the Web Configurator, which is just basically configuration of Nginx, basically what pfSense wants to give us access to edit. And as you see, they give us access to edit the TCP port. Cool. Max processes. Cool. But they don't give us access to set IP address to bind to. And another thing is Nginx is how they have it configured out of the box. This is binding on both IPv4 and IPv6. And you maybe you don't want that, you know what I'm saying? Maybe like, I just want binding to IPv4, or I just want binding to this certain IP address. Say I have 3 interfaces on my machine, on my pfSense box. Say I have a WAN interface, a LAN interface, and an administrative interface. This administrative interface, I bind all these services such as, the administrative services, which would be Nginx, which would be for the web configuration, and the SSHD. Say I bind both of those services to the IP address that coincides with the administrative interface. Now people on the LAN interface can't even access at all the pfSense configuration. That's good. That'd be the best way to do it. And they'd be like, oh, you could do that with firewall rules and stuff like that, but that eliminates the need for a firewall rule because the system, the pfSense box, isn't even listening. You know what I'm saying? The services aren't even listening on the port, so it's a better way of doing that. So I wish they would have gave us that option. So this is what they give us, and if you look, I enabled secure shell. This just basically enables openssh, and they do give you an option to change the SSH port. That's nice. They don't give us an option to specify. They do give us an option to specify RSA or DSA keys only, which you can actually add those authorized keys in the actual user thing. That's good. They don't give us, a login timeout, how many authentication tries a second. They don't give us fail to ban, all this kind of stuff. I mean, this is show access to your firewall, to your router, your main system. They should give you all those configuration options. You know what I'm saying? In here. Now you're like, well, we could edit the actual SSHD _config file. However, it's going to be overwritten, so we need to go to the script that writes it. So let's go ahead and let me pull up Putty. Okay, now I have Putty, and we're just going to log into this system. Okay, now you'd be typing in the IP address of your pfSense router. That's after you enabled it and saved. Hit open. Now it's going to ask us to log in as, and even though when we go to the web interface, we log in as admin, it's actually root. So whatever the credentials are for the admin account, that's going to be the same password for the root. Which I know, it's kind of crazy, right? And that's another thing. You should never allow root login. Maybe they should have an option to check right here, disable root login. And then maybe an option to add allow users, where you actually put in the users that you want to allow to explicitly be able to log in. And they see it kick this out there because I was talking too much. Okay, so now you get this nice little, beautiful little thing they give you. This is basically their rc.initial, basically bash shell script here, which I think I can pull it up. Nope, I don't have it in here. Okay, so this is basically just their little welcome script, and I can actually pull it up for you guys if I can find it. It's in etc. folder. They have all these little RC, scripts and crap. So let me find that for you. And here is basically that little welcome screen. If you look, so there it is. See, look familiar? So it's basically I like how they say display a cheap menu. See, that's developers for you. You can tell they were tired. They were working late in the night. But here's basically the rc.initial See how it, when you do an option, it basically executes one of these other scripts. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what that looks like. Just a bunch of, you know, backup scripts. So if you actually wanted to remove that, there is a way to remove it. So first, let's go into the shell. And let's figure out how to remove this right here. We don't always want to have this pop up in our face. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, you're killing me. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and see how we would do that. We would see, do an ls-lah, see what we have in here. And it would probably be in the bash profile. So let's do nano.profile. And if you look in here, detect interactive logins and display the shell. So if it sees a connection, it's going to execute etc rc initial. There it is. So next time you log in as root, you're not going to be prompted with that big ugly shell thing. Now if you ever wanted to have that shell thing pop up again in your face, just type in etc rc.initial and you just execute that script that's going to pop up in your face again. Makes sense? And I actually do have Nano on this machine. I just used the free BSD repo. I didn't actually have to configure the repo. I just pulled the actual package file and installed it using the package command. So there's that. So we wrote 5 lines. Now next time we come in here, we shouldn't be prompted with that ugly. And I know I like to call it ugly. But let's do restart session, or I could have done duplicate, but I'm too lazy for that. So let's see if we got rid of that banner, that banner. Now if you don't want to get rid of it, you don't have to comment that out. But I'm showing you how to basically make this like a system that is yours, because it really is. So login is root, and there we go. We have a shell. Echo hi. pwd. Okay, so there's our shell, but now we're not getting a we're not getting a psw, or not psw. We're not getting a ps1, which is basically going to show. Now we can actually add a ps1, but so let's see what was in the rc initial that gave us the ps1 file. So we're missing our PS1, but we can add a PS1 via our bash profile. Just specify one in there. I don't know if there was one in there. Was there? Okay, so these are just all free BSD, just free BSD crap. Just the bash stuff. Okay, so we don't have I don't know where our PS1 went. But it still shows us, you know, what folder we're in. Offset hashtag means we're in the root folder. But that's interesting. We didn't break anything, we're just not getting a PS1. Which that's nice, right? So there's a banner. I don't know what that banner is, but we can see what that banner gives us. Okay, so there's that banner. It just basically generates this version, and it generates the interfaces right there. So that's kind of nice. Maybe you want that to show on login. You want that banner to show up. But right now I'm just looking around myself. I know I'm getting a little off topic, but hey, it's all you know. I mean, this is the thing about pfSense. Unlike, you know, your consumer grade router crap, you know, even if you put DDWRT or tomato on them, it's not your system. pfSense makes it your system. You can go in, edit what you want. If you don't like a certain thing, how a certain thing looks, edit it. It's your system. You can mess around with it, do whatever you want with it. And that's what I like about pfSense. And then I'm just showing you that. That's basically what I'm showing you, basically how to mess around with it. Make it do what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? You don't, if you want to debrand it, debrand it. Like the SSH login crap, the banner, I didn't like that spitting out every time I logged in SSH, because I manage a lot of servers, a lot of, Linux servers, CentOS, Debian, Ubuntu, you name it. Even some Arch servers and stuff. And I'm SSH'd into a crap ton of servers, and having the pfSense thing show the banner every time, having to type the number 8 every time to get a shell, it gets annoying. So I'm showing you all kinds of things that you can do, you know what I'm saying? Parse command line parameters. What's RC local? Okay. So we have RC local. I don't know what RC local does. RC local might give us our it might give us our PS1. I'm looking for what gives us the PS1. That's what I'm looking for right now. Because it has to come from that, RC initial. So I'm looking in well, that's not okay. Yeah, it's etc. RC local. I don't see it though. Okay. Let's see if I even do it. Yeah, it doesn't exist. So it's basically saying if it doesn't exist, create it. Launching RC local. Huh. Platform. Check to see if SSHD is running. Well, we kind of SSH'd in, so I would hope it's running. But this is for any terminal. Like you can be in the terminal via serial. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be SSH, or you'd actually have physical access to the machine and actually have a monitor plugged in to where you can actually see the terminal window as well. So that's what that's about. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where it specifies our PS1. Which I don't know where it does. That's interesting. Okay, interesting. We can figure that out. Free BSD PS1. Okay, there we go. So this should give us a okay, so that gave us that didn't work as promised, but that was supposed to give us a PS1. Echo test. Okay. Well, I tried. That's supposed to show the current directory, but it's not because it's failing. Okay, well you can always specify in the bash profile a PS1 to use, you know what I'm saying? So let's try this PS1. Okay, that looks a little better. Okay, so there we go. Now we got a PS1. Good. Now let's pull this screen back up, pull that back up. There we go. Okay, so what you want to know is you want to know how to rebind stuff, services to explicit IP addresses, explicitly the LAN IP address, which on this box would be 192.168.1.1. Okay, ifconfig works on here. I would think IP address show would, but it is FreeBSD, which I am quite new to, but starting to learn. So as you can see, we got EM0, which that's our WAN interface, and then we have EM1. So there we go. Okay, cool. So that basically shows that. So we want to mess around with Nginx first. So I did the courtesy myself of looking at where these files are at and where they're all at. So if you look, we actually have the Nginx configuration and the var etc location. So let's go ahead and go there. If we do an ls, you see we got all these, you know, configuration files and stuff in here. And pfSense likes to do their own layout and names of the files. But as you can tell, Nginx-Web Configurator, which is what they want to call their web interface, the GUI. This is basically the main Nginx config that Nginx uses. So if we look at it, nano Nginx, if we look at it here, you see it's ran as root with the group of wheel. 2 worker processes, you know, just everything in here. They have server tokens off. That's pretty good. Okay. This is where they output the access log. Interesting. So if I wanted to look at, you know, who is loading the web interface for my router, I can go into that and get the access log and basically have a www bot like I have on IRC. But what strikes us right here is if you look at the listen blocks, you see it's listening on anything, just 443, just throw the hell out of there, you know what I'm saying? And it's also listening on IPv6. So say we want to remove this. Say we don't like it listening on this stuff. Make sense? Say we don't want listening on IPv6, so I just erased IPv6. And now we only want it listening on the LAN IP address explicitly. So we do 192.168.1.1, then we do a colon. That's how you do it in Nginx. That's how you do a listen block. That just made it a bit more secure. We just explicitly told it Nginx to not listen on IPv6 and to listen on basically the LAN IP address right there. So it's not listening via interface. It's not listening to all interfaces, all IP addresses. No, it's being explicit. Now that's for the HTTPS part. Now we got to do the regular HTTP, which is going to be a redirect to HTTPS. And as you see, this is basically going to be on port 80. We're going to remove the IPv6 block. Then we're going to do 192.168.1.1. Now I'm just showing this as a tutorial. Please do not edit this configuration file because it is going to get overwritten. That's what I'm going to show you. That's what I'm trying to show you. So if you're following along with me and you're editing the nginx-webconfigurator.conf and you're like, why isn't it working? Well, hang on. I'm going to show you. I want to show you why you cannot hard code this and how you can hard code it. So basically, this is the Nginx configuration, which it shouldn't frighten you. If you've worked with servers, if you worked with Nginx, you've made your own Nginx configurations because you had full control over it. You're the one that did it. You're the one who configured Nginx. Okay, and pfSense doesn't want you to be the one to configure Nginx. They don't want you to tell. They don't want you to put in what SSL ciphers you want to use and, you know, all that stuff. But here's the thing: is you can hard code it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So say you hard code this. You think it'll work. Well, yes, this is the configuration that Nginx uses. However, so we just saved it, right? Wrote 67 lines. I could even show you right there. Okay, so it's on file as that. However, here's the problem. We go back into here, okay? And what I don't like is they don't show Nginx as a service over here, because they don't want you to like mess up the web GUI, which I think is pretty dumb. So I'm gonna show you how we can force that. How we can force that to go away. So basically, we're gonna do etc rc.initial. Did I type that wrong? No, I want etc. Okay. There we go. See, that's how we just execute that beautiful little web prompt, right? And now what we're going to do is we're going to restart the Web Configurator, which is basically, that just restarts Nginx. See? Spit us back into a shell. Thank you. Now, what's interesting is I actually know how we can get that PS1 now. Because if you look, when we hit 8, that's obviously running a script, right? So let's look what script that runs. Let's take a look. Is there a way we can take a look at that again? Please. Okay, so we look at number 8. That is running bin tcsh. Okay? That's what's running. So if we put that in our profile to run that, we're gonna have what we want, which is good. So let's go ahead and let's do that while we're at it. So let's cd back to root, nano.profile. Let's go ahead and put that in there. There we go. So next time we go ahead and log in via SSH, now we should just get the shell that we want. Hopefully. Okay? And look at that. See, no banners, no bullcrap, just a shell. Okay, so that's how we did that. Okay, so we're slowly hacking it. You know what I'm saying? Now there's probably a way we can change the PS1, maybe customize it. But I'm pretty sure that's a binary. Yeah, that's a binary. So there's probably another way to specify the PS1. I don't know. But what we did was we restarted Nginx. So let's see if it's explicitly binding to the LAN IP address. It's probably not. You know why? Because it probably got overwritten. So let's take a look at the configuration. And if you look right here, that same file that we edited was overwritten. Like, damn it, it's binding on all interfaces again. Wildcard :80. We don't want that. We do not want bind all interfaces, all IP addresses that the box is using. No. We want to explicitly bind it to the LAN IP address. And you're like, Vic, well, we hard coded it. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at actual Nginx that is running, see if I can find it in here. Yeah. Let's see. I think it was in here. Yeah, right here. And if you look right here, you can see that it's even using the config right here. That's the same configuration file, right? That the Nginx process is using. But you're like, okay, why does it keep overwriting? Okay, so luckily for me, this is the configuration that we're gonna have to edit in the etc folder, inc folder, and then the system.inc. So let's go to, if you go to cd, etc., inc, you see in here you have a bunch of inc files, which are basically, it's PHP. This is what writes the configurations for the various services, like actually writes the configuration files onto the disk, including Nginx. So the one that we want to mess with is going to be the system.inc file. So I have WinSCP, and I basically SSH'd in, and it's basically using SCP. You know what I'm saying? And I'm in the etc. folder. Let's go into inc. So we want system, right? System inc. Right click, hit edit. That's going to basically bring it up in Notepad++ for me. And here is basically what writes the configuration files. This is the main daddy right here. This is what you want to get into. So if we look, we got some unbound, some DNS mask. We got the resolve config, which basically that sets the name servers at this machine. Basically the DNS resolvers that the machine's going to use to send DNS queries to. Everybody knows what resolve config is if they've managed a server in their lifetime. We got get search domains, get name servers. We got how it's gonna set the host file right there. See, like you can change what it's gonna be, but we want to look for that Nginx configuration. So we just keep scrolling through. If you look over here, it's not a terrible long file. So it has to be in here somewhere. Of course, you can do a Control F if you were speedy. This looks like how it generates the SSL certificate for the web interface, the default one anyway. Web GUI starting Web Configurator, which that just runs. That just spawns a Nginx right here. Start Nginx. User local sbin Nginx. There's the actual executable binary, and then you specify the config to run it as, which is basically var etc Nginx-web configurator, which we hard coded that, remember, to bind explicitly to a LAN IP, but it didn't work because it got overwritten. Yeah, it's getting overwritten. I'm going to show you where. Right here. Okay, so see how it has Nginx config and it has EOD? Look right here. Here's where it starts the configuration. This is an easy way to find where they're basically generating the configs at. Is if you look at the banner of the configuration, see how it says Nginx configuration file like that with a little hashtag. Let's go back into the shell. If you look at the top here, see, that's the same configuration file being generated. So let's go ahead and edit that just for So I'm showing you how you can hard code the Nginx config, and every time it gets regenerated, it's going to spit out what you want it to. Okay, so the first thing you can change is the PID process ID. You can change the user, which you don't want to do because you're going to need to run as root for certain pages and stuff, certain configurations that it does. So if you want to, you can specify it to run as a different user even. And it's not done yet. Okay, it's telling you that the dot equals means basically to append. That's what it means. It means to append. See, if you want server tokens back on, you can turn them back on. Want to change your keep alive timeout? You can. Want to change where the access log gets spit out at, or the access log format, like for my www bot on IRC, you can do it. But here's what we're interested in right here. Here's the listen block. So see how it shows Nginx port? Basically, when you specify the port, in your configuration on the web GUI, it's going to change it to whatever port you specified. Now, see, you think pfSense would be smart and would do this. You know what I'm saying? Something like something like that, you know what I'm saying? And then allow us to specify what IP address it binds to. Of course, have a colon in there. You think they would think about doing that, but they don't. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to specify to explicitly listen on the LAN IP address of the router. There we go. We're going to get rid of IPv6. We don't want it binding on IPv6. At least I don't. And see, you can even change some of the SSL ciphers that uses, you know, you can go in here and say you don't want TSL version 1 at all. You're like, no, get rid of it. You can change all that in here. And see how it does it? It just does Nginx config, and then it has that pinned. So if you wanted to add another line, you just do this. You just basically do an Nginx config append, and then add this part right here. You add that part right there. Okay. And then whatever you want to add for nginx.conf. And then you add a line break via n, colon, boom. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. We'll add a hashtag in that. Okay? That's how you do it. Okay. I'm just looking still. I'm looking. Because I know we're not done. Remember, we also have to do the port 80. Okay. So I'm going to show you that. So let's keep scrolling. And see, maybe you don't want these comments in there. You can just completely get rid of them if you wanted to. That's how cool this is. Now, if you look right here, there's that. That's how you do it, guys. That's how you bind. That's how you explicitly bind your Nginx. Here's the configuration for your Nginx. It's right here. Okay. We're gonna hit save. Give it a couple seconds for WinSep to re-upload it. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna tell it to restart openssh. Shall we? I think we should. So let me figure out the configuration. Let's see how does it restart the. You start Web Configurator as 11. It's basically just this. Just specify that. Go back into here. It should restart Nginx. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the Nginx configuration. Okay. Boom. Boom shakalaka. If we scroll up, let's scroll up. This is var etc. right here. See var etc. We catted the Nginx Web Configurator. Look at that. YouTube tutorial hard code pfSense. We just hard coded the Nginx configuration to whatever we want. If you want to change anything, you can. Look at that. It's explicitly binding to LAN IP address and no IPv6 binding. Cool. That's what I wanted. That's how you do it. Okay. Look down here. See? So let's go see if our web configurator is what they want to call it. Let's go see if our web GUI still works. Yeah, it's still, because I'm still pulling in the traffic graphs. See? So let's go ahead and just click on advanced, look around. See, it's still loading. So let's go ahead and look at sockets now. Now, if you look, you should see a big difference already. You see Nginx, right? But if you look, all these are explicitly binding to the LAN IP address. Okay, and you're like, well, how do you access it from 10.0.0.162? Because I set a port forward to be able to access it. I set a port forward. I'll show you that in here in a second. But look, Nginx is now explicitly binding to LAN. Okay? We configured Nginx how we wanted to because we're badass. Okay? Now if we look, there's still work to be done. You still see some wildcards in here that we don't want to have. Okay? Like we don't want ntpd listening to everything. That's not good. We want to make sure DHCP D is listening on the LAN interface. We don't want SSH listening to everything. That's really bad. So those are my two main ones that I was really concerned about, is Nginx and SSHD out of all of them. Those are my two main ones I'm concerned about. So those are the ones that have privileges to be able to do anything to the system, anything to your router, anything to your main firewall. Okay, if you're a big business, this is important. You want to make sure you can configure the SSHD how you want to. That's what I like to be able to do. So we got that. That's really good. Okay, so let me show you the rule here. See, NAT. See, here's the NAT. Here's the port for it. Okay, we got WAN. So anything coming in inbound on WAN, coming inbound to port 80 is going to get redirected to 192.168.1.1, which is the LAN IP address of the router on port 80. And I added a description there. These are the ones I added. I added all these. I just put pfSense web GUI, HTTP, SSHD. That's basically how I did that. Okay, that makes sense. So we just hard coded the Nginx. Now, how do we hard code the SSHD? Well, it uses openssh. Not the latest version. One version older, because the latest version just came out a couple days ago. But that's what I like about pfSense. So I'm going through the packages. I'm looking at the package versions of everything, via the shell, using the package command and shit. And almost like everything is the latest version. It's really good. I'm glad. OpenSSL latest version. I'm like, if you look at the date codes on it, it's saying like March 2016. And it has only been a few days into March 2016. So that's like, boom, brand new. Everything is, everything's up to date. And that's good on a security perspective. So the OpenSSH binding is not in an INC file, it's in etc SSHD. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, okay? So I'll pull up one step again. We're in etc in it. Let's go back to etc. We're going to look for SSHD. Right here, right click. See, I know I can go on for hours about this stuff, but this is what I like about pfSense. You have full control over the machine, the box. It is your router. If you don't like how DHCP is working, if you want to fine tune it, you can. Okay, most of the stuff you can do from the web interface, but some stuff you can't, and you have to hard code. And I showed an example of something that you would have to hard code. Most of the stuff you can get away with in the web interface, because pfSense, they really do a good job at trying to put a lot of advanced stuff in the web interface. However, they do leave out some stuff. So if you want to like fine tune everything, like you want everything configured the way you want it to, you can do it. You have access to the box. You know what I'm saying? So here's what generates the SSHD configuration file. If you see, here's what's going to show the host SSH keys, configurations. So let's see. Right here is where it does the SSH config, and you see there's the append, typical stuff, right? So say we want to change, some stuff. Say we want to change the login grace time. This basically tells you how long after, how long does the user have to log in before they get timed out, basically, like when they're typing in the password, how long? And it's at 30 seconds, and that's a bit high. I'm going to change it to 10 seconds. So that means when you connect via SSH, you have to log in and authenticate in under 10 seconds. So it's basically, it's just, it's a security feature, okay? And see, you have permit root login, like you can change that to no. Right there. Makes sense. You think they would have added that into here, but they don't. I don't know why. Compression, yes. Client live interval, use DNS, no. That's good. I'm glad they had that in there. X11 forwarding, they have that on now. But there's more stuff you can add in here. So let's go ahead and look at my my system over here. Here's basically how I have mine configured here. And we want to explicitly bind we want to explicitly bind this server. So how would we go about doing that? Well, I'll show you. We do ssh conf dot enter listen address, then we're going to put the LAN IP address of the router, and then followed by a line break like that, and make sure you include the semicolon. Okay, so there we go. Now we explicitly binded openssh to the LAN IP address. That's what we wanted to do. Okay, and we can go even farther. We can harden it down, you know what I'm saying, enable keep alives, you know what I'm saying, all kinds of stuff that you would want to do. Okay, SSH keys, that's a good thing to do. But we can even do allow users. Say we want to only allow a specific user in here. So let's go ahead and do that. That's another good thing to do. So there's that. Okay, looking good. So we're just allowing me in there, which I'm actually a user. I actually went to the user manager and added me via the pfSense web GUI or GUI. You can change the server key bits, even add a banner. Like maybe I want to add a banner. You know what I'm saying? I like banners, or maybe even an MOTD. Max authentication tries. That's another thing they should have in there. You think they would have that? They don't. I mean, you know. But this is what I like, is you can come in here and add everything that you want to add to it. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. This file is automatically generated at startup. No. We're gonna put YouTube okay, we're gonna put YouTube tutorial hi pfSense developers. Okay, so there we locked it down. You know what I'm saying? We can even change the port. See how it has port, SSH port? We can hard code a port. You know, that's the brilliance. But we're not gonna change the port because then I have to do a firewall rule. But this is just for an example. Like there's obviously a lot more things I would add into SSH config to harden it. Like a lot more things. I'd fine tune a lot of this stuff. But just hit the save button. And now we are going to restart the SSHD. And how we're going to do that is let's go into status, or status, or however you guys want to pronounce it, services. SSHD, we're going to hit the big restart button. But before we do that, let's take a look at what the config file looks like right now. So where's the config file located first off? It is in etc sshd underscore config. We do an ls. Here's everything in the openssh configuration directory. We cat sshd underscore config. This is out of the box. This is your sshd config. Out of the box on pfSense. Yeah, not that, you know, explicit. Not that, you know. There's no max authentication tries. You know, all this stuff. You know. Oh, and another thing I want to add. Print last log. That's important. Print last log. There's keep alive you can turn on. TCP forwarding. Hot max clients that you can have connected at once. But print last log should definitely be on. That tells you basically who last authenticated. I'll show you here in a second. Definitely want to add print last log. You think that'd be something they would have in there by default? I might, you know, I'll bring up a lot of this stuff in the forums later for them. But there's print last log. We just added that. Let's hit save. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, we don't have print last log. We don't have, you know, all that stuff in there, right? And see how it says this file is automatically generated on startup? Yeah, it is. So let's go ahead and restart the SSHD. daemon. We'll wait for it here. And see, it's still restarting. There we go. SSHD has been restarted. And it took a while because every time you restart it, it regenerates the configuration file for whatever reason, right? So let's recat that out. Boom. Look at that. YouTube tutorial. Hi, pfSense developers. Permit root login? No. Compression? Yes. Use DNS? No. Listen address. Look at that. That's important. Or explicitly binding to the LAN IP address. Allow users. Only GTXL. Next authentication tries 2. Print last log? Yes. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. So let's go ahead and see if we can log in as root. Let's see if we can go ahead and log in as root on our pfSense router now. Think we can? I don't think we will. Access denied. And I typed the correct password, I can assure you. Look at that. Within 10 seconds, it kicked us out. So let's go ahead and restart that session. Boom! We're in. That is how you hard code a configuration file for a service on pfSense. Pretty cool. You can do anything, not just binding. I showed you. You can go in, configure it however you want to. You have full control over this machine. Don't let them think, oh, you only have to use the web GUI. Only have to. Well, I would if you would include where I can configure every damn thing out of the box. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to configure anything and everything. You know what I'm saying? Binding. I'm talking, everything. I mean, max authentication tries. You think that would be in there, right? I mean, print last log. This is the last log right here. It just prints this out. So you know who last authenticated via SSH or anything, really. See, it shows the IP address because we have use DNS set to no, so it's always going to show the IP address and not the PTR/RDNS record. So that's really good. See, they'll even tell you the time. This is critical for a machine. You want to have last log so you always know. You know what I'm saying? But that's how you do it. That's how you do it, guys. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the sockets now. I told you I can talk for hours. I really can. So let's go into Diagnostics Sockets. And if you look, let's look for SSH on the side here. SSHD right here. I don't know, I think I was daydreaming there for a second. Look at that. It's explicitly binding to the LAN IP address. Very good. Very good, guys. Now, there's a lot more I'd do with SSHD, but I'm just showing you as an example how to hard code stuff. Like I would be doing SSH keys, 496 RSA keys, and I'd be having fancy banners with ASCII art. Like I would be going full town. Like I would even have stats scripts that show me the bandwidth, everything on login. Like I'd be going full town with my box if it was mine. But this is just a test VM to show you guys. So I'm not going to go into, SSH keys and everything like that. I mean, you can even go into port knocking and, everything else, which I highly recommend because this is your main fucking security appliance right here. This is, if you're the fucking FBI, if you're a big business, a bank, you need full configuration control. You know what I'm saying? So that's good. We have this stuff listing on the LAN IP address now explicitly. It's not just listing on anything and everything. Now you can change the PHP if it's listing via a TCP socket or a Unix socket, and usually people have this bind to localhost. 127.0.0.1. I don't know why it's showing up as any and all. I would think they would have their PHP FPM process binding to localhost. If not, we can change that too. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff we can change. So let's take a look at the Ntp D. Now, what's interesting about this is they actually let us configure the binding on it. You're like, what? Really? Yeah, they do. If we go into Services, Ntp D, you can actually specify an interface. So that's good. I still wish they would allow you to specify via an IP address, which you can do with ntp D. I looked it up earlier somewhere. Right here. See, interface listen, and then the IP address. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's try to do that. I don't like it listening to an interface. I'm more of an explicit guy, you know. Luckily for me, I did look up where the configuration files are at. So the default ntp D configuration is in var, etc. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Maximize this. So that's cd var, etc. And I don't know if I have root permissions or not on this account, but who knows? It looks like we do. So here's the default ntp D configuration, and as you see, pfSense has their lovely, you know, configuration banners like they have on everything else, right? So also you have no control over, you know, the iburst, max poll, and stuff on what time servers you specify. Well, guess what? If we have access to hard configure it, we could configure it however the hell we want to. Okay? Like, say you don't like their default restrictions, you can change it. Say you don't like where it's logged into, you can change it. However, I wouldn't really change the log directories or the stats there because that might interfere with the web interface, because the web interface does have its logging and it does do RRD graphs and everything else. But stuff like this, yeah, you can change it. You have control over it. Now, if you look how they do it, when I specified the interface LAN, they have an interface listen EM1, which is the LAN interface, and they have interface ignore all. However, I'm getting from everywhere else on the internet, it is actually supposed to be interface ignore wildcard. So we're gonna try interface ignore wildcard, okay? And we're going to explicitly have this listen on localhost and the LAN IP, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So we would add this in, etc. inc system. So let's go ahead and pull one step, or an etc. Let's go to the inc file or folder, system. Edit. Now, as you can tell, you got that nice little configuration banner, right? So let's go ahead and search for that configuration banner, shall we? Make life easier. Boom. Look at that. Let's go ahead and change that. Now you want to keep the in that specifies a line break. Okay. So let's go ahead and change how it binds to interfaces, shall we? So let's see where, let's look up wait, how's it specified out? How's it spit it out? Interface listen. Oh, this is too great, guys. This is too great. There you go. Look at that. Interface ignore all. Well, we're going to do that. Interface ignore wildcard. Hit save. Actually, I'm going to add one more of these lines because I actually want it to be also listening on localhost. Hit save again. Give it a couple seconds. Let's go into service or status services. Let's give ntp D a restart and let's see if it works. Now, when you hard code configure something, I highly recommend you guys make a backup of the original inc file or file that you're editing. Like do cp filename .orig, you know, like .orig. so you know the original file. So if you made any problems or anything, you can restore. Okay. So let's take a look at what the configuration file looks like now for ntpd. Look at that. Look at that. If you look at our lovely banner up here, you got YouTube ntpd configuration example. And we have our interfaces. Interface ignore wildcard. Interface listen 192.168.1.1. Interface listen 127.0.0.1. Boom shakalaka. That's how you do it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the sockets. And if we look, ntpd is only binding on those two. I don't see ntpd showing up anywhere else on here, do you? I don't. That's really good. That's lovely. That's nice. That's how it should be. That is how it should be. That's good. That's secure. That's how it should be. Okay. I'm not going to show examples for every single service like PHP FPM, Syslog, stuff like that, because I'd go on for hours. However, I do recommend changing them. So look around the file system. I mean, you've seen the general pattern. Stuff's usually in etc. Inc. Just look around in there. But you can change how the configurations are. Now, things that need to be changed. PHP FPM should be listening on local on 127.0.0.1, and then some type of TCP port. Wait, why is it on UDP? Why is PHP FPM on UDP? That does not make no sense at all. Now that's really weird. That's really weird. It shouldn't be listing on UDP. So I'm gonna have to hunt down the PHP FPM config, see where that's at, see where the script is that generates the config, and change it to how I configure my servers to use Nginx and PHP. You know what I'm saying? Because it's obviously gonna work. It's just an interpreter. You know what I'm saying? To render out PHP files. But okay. Nginx good. Syslog. Oh, this is basically your Syslog daemon that can take the logs on your system and spit them out on a Syslog server somewhere. Basically, it's kind of like remote login. I use it on my, my router at home, my Ubiquity, everything goes to a Syslog server. This I would bind to the LAN IP address as well. Something I'll do. DHCPD should not be listening on all interfaces, and I have no idea why it is binding to this random ass port. 67 is the port for DHCP on UDP, but I don't know why it's binding to this random port, so I'd have to go into the configuration file and see why the hell it's binding to that random port and get rid of it. And this is good, at least they got that right. And then, yeah, PHP FPM. But if you look down here on IPv6, this had thousands and thousands of, processes before I started. And now it's only down to a select few. But obviously, I would change how these are binding. You know what I'm saying? And NTPD, that should not be binding on that. Why is it binding on that? It's kind of interesting. Unless there's another ntpd daemon that's being processed. Oh. Maybe it's because I have restrict-6, so it's thinking about using IPv6. That's interesting. Okay. So see, you can change the configuration files to help improve this stuff, and I'll research some of these other ones, like these random ass ports that's popping up, and why PHP is binding on UDP. You know what I'm saying? The FP. So yeah, guys, this has just been a quick tutorial to show you. Well, not really quick. To show you how you can, hard change. Now, the only thing that's gonna mess up the configuration files that you made is if you update the system. So I'm going to show you this. Let's go ahead and click update. Let's go to update here. Let's see how big of an update this is. if it's gonna be, oh, it's not a big one. Oh shoot, that's not gonna break anything. That probably won't break anything. Like if I go back into here, like if I cat this back out, see that doesn't break anything. See, that doesn't break anything. So, but if you was to do a full update where it would show, you know, the kernel, the pfSense base, everything else, you would have to redo what we did. Now, if you're running stable, that's probably going to be once every 6 months, maybe once a year. So it's not that big of a pain to do to just go into these and, you know, change them. The only reason it took an hour is because I like to explain myself into detail. But anyway, guys, I hope that hope you guys learned how you can edit the configuration files, hard code them to what you want, and not have them keep getting overwritten by pfSense. So leave a comment, let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.